time I managed to pay you off, you found a new reason that I owed you money. So I considered there'd be no better character to make into a wallet. I made this super cool Tom Nook inspired wallet. I love it to death. I love the little pouches and my clear pouch for my ID. So for this week, here's what you need. Pins, a sewing machine and all the accoutrements that come with it, one heavy-duty sewing machine needle, or a needle and thread and a whole lot of patience, 1/2 inch double fold bias tape, scissors, white, royal blue, dark brown, light brown, pink, and light blue felt, dark, medium, and light green cotton, clear 12 gauge vinyl, pin tape, and all the patterns, which will be available from a link in the description. The first step is to cut out all your pieces, except the ears. I know I have the ears cut out there, but learn from my mistakes and don't cut out the ears. Then take the dark brown mask piece and lay it on top of the light brown square piece. You're basically just going to lay this how you want it to look on the wallet. You want it to be at least 1/2 inch away from all the edges, but more than 1/2 inch away from the top, so put it more towards the bottom. Then go ahead and sew around it with a very thin zigzag stitch and sew over that with a slightly thicker satin stitch. Now it's time to add the rest of the eyepieces. Just lay them inside of the sockets. If you have to do some trimming to get them to lay perfect, don't worry, I had to do it too. Just go ahead and do what you have to do to get them to lay. If they're a little squished, that's totally fine. Then pin the eyelid and the whites of the eyes down and sew a zigzag followed up by a satin stitch all the way around the outside of the eye socket. Don't worry about the blues. Once the rest of the eye is secured, it's time to add the blues. So go ahead and put it in its place and then run a zigzag stitch followed up by a satin stitch down the eyelid over the eyeball. At that point, you might have to do some tugging on your various felt pieces. The satin stitch does tend to pull things a little weird, so you might have to do some tugging to get them all to match up in the edges again. But once you have, run a zigzag stitch and a satin stitch over the last final line, that little loop between the blue and the white. Repeat the same steps for the light blue leaf on the royal blue rectangle. Once you have everything satin stitch on, except for the ears, because we're going to worry about those later, measure out a piece of bias tape that is just a little bit longer than the wallet. Then completely unfold the bias tape and match up the edges. Pin together and sew down with a zigzag stitch, being careful that the stitch doesn't go over the edge or over the first fold. Once you've sewn down the zigzag, go ahead and flip the bias tape over itself so that it lays flat again. So this is only going to be 2 layers of bias tape over your 1 layer of felt. At that point, take it over to your sewing machine and using a zipper foot, sew a straight stitch as close to the edge of the bias tape as you possibly can. Making sure the orientation is how you like it, repeat the same steps to the back of the wallet with the same piece of bias tape that's on the front. Once the outside of the wallet looks like this, take a piece of the wallet liner, lay them wrong sides together, and pin the top together, matching up all those edges. Then run a straight stitch as close as you can to the edge using a zipper foot. Measure out a piece of bias tape that is the same length as the top of the wallet and go ahead and open it up, matching up the completely unfolded edge with the edge of the fabric just like you previously did, and run a zigzag stitch down the edge. Fold over the bias tape so it's sandwiching the wallet and sew it down with a straight stitch and a zipper foot, getting as close to the edge of the bias tape as you possibly can. At this point, your wallet should look something like this. Alright, on to the innards of the wallet. Take your 4 pocket pieces and fold them together hot dog style and pin them in place. Then take one of your half wallet pieces and put one of your pocket pieces near the top. You want to make sure it's 0.75 inches away. Pin in place and then sew down the edge using a zigzag stitch. You want the zigzag stitch to go over the edge of the light green fabric, like this. Then sew a straight stitch 1/4 inch away from the edge. Repeat these steps for the other 3 pockets. You might notice I'm missing a pocket here. I forgot it, so make sure you put all 4 pockets on and don't be like me. Measure out a piece of bias tape a little bit longer than the wallet. Then open it up all the way and match up the edge of the fabric to the inner fold. So it's going to be kind of backwards from what we did on the outside. Then sew a zigzag stitch. It should look something like this. Fold over the edge once and then pin and sew a straight stitch as close to the edge as you possibly can. Repeat the same steps for the other half of the inner wallet. Then take your wallet liner and put it on top of the back of the wallet, wrong sides together, pin and sew the top together with a straight stitch as close to the edge as you possibly can get it. Measure and cut another piece of bias tape, unfold the bias tape completely and match up the edge with the top edge of the inner wallet. Pin and sew with a zigzag. It should look something like this right now. Now what you're going to want to do is take out your piece of vinyl. You might have to trim it a little bit so that it fits perfectly in whatever space you have. Fabric does tend to shift. Once it's trimmed, we're going to actually hold it in place using pin tape. We don't want to use pins because vinyl doesn't like having too many holes poked in it. So just use pin tape, put it along the top edge, and then use another piece of pin tape on top of the vinyl to hold the bias tape on that side in place and pin the rest. Then use a straight stitch and a zipper foot to sew as close to the bias tape edge as you possibly can. Finally, time to deal with the ears. Take your pattern piece and a pen and trace the pattern onto a piece of felt. You want this felt to be pretty decent size. Then take your inner ear piece and lay it out how you want it to be on the actual finished piece. Pin in place and zigzag and satin stitch down. Then just go ahead and cut it out. Alright, time to put the two halves of the wallet together. Use pin tape on the side that has vinyl to put the wallet's wrong side together. Make sure you do it on both sides, both the inside of the wallet and where the vinyl actually lays. Then go ahead and take a zipper foot and sew a straight stitch as close to the edge of the wallet all the way around it except for the top. Go ahead and measure out a piece of bias tape that is long enough to go around the entirety of the wallet, making sure to leave at least a ½ inch of extra on either end to be folded over. Pin in place and sew down with a zigzag stitch on one of the sides. Then carefully fold over the other side, making sure to tuck the corner so that it lays fast and pin in place. Except when you get to vinyl, there you're going to use the pin tape again. Continue until you get all the way around the three sides of the wallet. Once the three sides are zigzagged, it's time to flip over the bias tape onto the right side and sandwich the wallet together. Pin in place, making sure to tuck both ends a ½ inch down in, and sew with a straight stitch all around the three sides as close to the edge of the bias tape as you can get it. Alright, this last bit's tricky, but I think it's really cute. Position the ears how you like with the rectangles flipped under the circle part. Pin and sew the rectangles down with a zigzag stitch, being very careful to only sew through the front of the wallet. Flip the ears up, pin them in place, and sew a zigzag and satin stitch around the outside, again being really careful not to sew the wallet closed. Clip your thread short and you are done. You have an awesome Tom Nook inspired wallet. Hope to see you next week for a new geeky craft.